shit.
Remind me again why we're going to White Castle.
I told you, we've done at least a dozen episodes now, and not once did we feature White Castle. They're gonna pull our corporate sponsoring if we don't show them.
But they don't pay us.
Shut up and drive!
Okay.
This vlog brought to you by White Castle, our forever sponsor.
Please pay us.
Please. Well, now that we've had some delicious White Castle, we are ready to discuss The Hobbit. And, oh, what's this doing with my chicken rings?
My precious.
Yes. Are you gonna be alright?
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Okay,
Put this nicely away.
Anyway, so let us begin, shall we?
Yes, the Desolation of Smaug, or Smaug.
However the hell everyone wants to pronounce it. This will be, yeah, it's been a full year since we did the first Hobbit, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the White Castle.
Yes. But we're not in a White Castle, we're in your room.
Oh yeah.
Makeshift. It's nice.
Thank you. I made it to sort of resemble that of a Hobbit dwelling.
Yes. Especially with my height. But anyway.
Shut up, you. So yeah, I guess when comparing this to the first Hobbit, I personally found it more enjoyable. Because, I mean, the first one I thought was alright. It took forever to get into everything, and there was a lot of confusing things. Because, just to reiterate, in case you haven't saw the last vlog, I'm not a Tolkien fan. I mean, I don't hate it, and I just haven't read the books. I don't know the backstory and everything. I don't know the whole mythology. I mean, I know enough. I saw the original Lord of the Rings, but I'm not a hardcore fan. But I'll watch it. So forgive me if I sound a little ignorant on a few things. I'm still getting to know names and everything.
I have a brother-in-law who's a huge Tolkien fan. Now, I already liked Lord of the Rings, prior to this, but he's a huge Tolkien fan, so he knows all the stuff like the mythology and stuff like that, and some of that is kind of rubbed off onto me. So looking into this, I mean, I look at it kind of with both perspectives of both, kind of with the Tolkien fan at heart and also the average moviegoer. And I think, to me, as for average moviegoers, if they've seen at least the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, they'll appreciate The Hobbit more. Especially because, and it's also, and I said this last year, The Hobbit is a prequel trilogy, probably done right. Probably one of the better prequels. Especially, a lot better than, say, Star Wars, because
anything's better than the Star Wars prequels.
But this prequel also helps because the fact that you're actually basing it off of an actual book that is a prequel, which is The Hobbit. Although
to be fair, does it really need to be 3 movies?
And that's what kind of confused me, especially near the end, and which we'll get to that later on. But that's what kind of bugged me now after seeing the second one. It's like, I'm not sure if it really needed to be 3. I think originally it was supposed to be 2, and I would have been fine with 2. But this is just more. But they need to, because 3 is a magic number in the world of movies in Hollywood.
Well, now it is.
Unless you're Hunger Games, but that's a different point. But with the Hobbit, like the second film, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but from where it ends ultimately, like in the very end of the second film, it's like, because it's like, okay, how much more is there that they could squeeze out to make it into a third film? But I will say this: the first film does start off pretty strong. It starts off, it picks up, they're back down from their perch, that this mountainside thing that the eagles left them there at the end of the first one, and they're about to go, and they're about to go into the forest, of Mirkwood, and Gandalf's like, okay, you're on your own, guys. It's like, what? Like, okay, goodbye.
I did not understand
Later.
That. It's like, okay, Gandalf is leading them through all this, and then he leads them to a forest that he knows what's going to happen in there. He knows that the rest of them have never been in there before, but he's like, okay, so this forest has these dangers, and this will happen if you do this, but I'm just going to leave it all up to chance and hope you follow my direction, so good luck, I'm going to go off on my own adventure.
Yeah, there's something else
like,
bigger. Something else bigger involved. I mean, I can't really. It's stuff like this that you can't really argue against because well, I haven't read the Hobbit, so, and for the most part, it probably does happen in the book. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it kind of sounds stupid, but you can't really argue against it because it's in the source material, and doing it differently would be kind of like going against the source material. Then Tolkien fans will be like, rage. And
I know, it just even though it probably is in the book, it still doesn't make sense. Like, at first I was thinking, okay, this is just their excuse to get Ian McKellen out of the action because the guy's getting on in years and he can't exactly do that many action stuff now. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It's just like I saw as soon as he says that and leaves, I'm like, okay, these guys are fucked. These guys are really fucked.
And they get attacked by giant spiders.
Oh my god, when I saw that, I'm like, wait, when did we wander into Harry Potter and Chamber of Secrets? That's what it seemed like. They were giant spiders, and they talked. I mean, there's only one spider in Harry Potter talked, but...
I think it's because after when Bilbo put the ring on, like, he was able to understand what they were saying. I think it only works if he put the ring on.
I didn't understand that. I'm sure they explained it, but I still didn't understand that.
But they get captured by spiders. They get,
almost eaten, but thanks to Bilbo, who is now the most competent person in their crew, they all managed to escape.
With the help of some elves and Legolas.
True. Oh my god, Legolas. I have to bring this up from the get-go. The fuck did they do to his face? What did they do to his face?
What? Wait, what did they do to his face?
You didn't notice? They did some weird CGI crap on his face. I don't know if it was to make him look younger or whatever, but
probably.
He looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy if he wore, like, bright-ass blue contacts. And it wasn't consistent. They kept switching between his regular face and his CGI face. Like, sometimes he'll have brown eyes, sometimes he'll have blue. And it was like, why are you doing this? It's like... The Legolas looked different at one point, and he, like, shed his cocoon, and then he looked like what he does now in The Lord of the Rings. I was confused. Like, you honestly didn't notice that?
Maybe not. Maybe it's because we were watching it in 3D, and maybe because, like, the glasses were...
I should mention, since we're on that subject, if you're gonna see this in 3D, do it with a place that has good 3D, like an AMC theater. Don't go to, like, a third-rate place, because it is disorienting.
Yeah.
And it is, like... it takes you out of it.
Plus also, there was a lot of he was only there mostly. I love how they finally did to Legolas what they should have done a long time ago, and that's just have him there just to go in and kick some ass. That's pretty much what he did throughout all this. Yeah, he had a line or two, and there's even this one scene where he looks over. He says, "Round up the dwarves," and he's like, and he sees like this picture from the Gloin, who, for those who don't know, is the father of Gimli. So he looks over, he's like, "Who's that? Oh, that's my wife." And, "Oh, who's this guy?" "That's my son, Gimli."
Your future boyfriend.
and everyone's just like, ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha. One of those prequel things where it's like, yeah, we know this is going to happen. And
I get that reference.
Monkeys. No. But yeah, I mean, there's stuff like that. But Legolas doesn't really do Legolas just there to go in and kick ass. I think
that's pretty much is supposed to be his role, because, I mean, when he's not kicking ass, he's pretty much explanation man.
He's Basil Exposition.
Yeah, that's pretty much what his job is. Thankfully, he didn't do much of that in this movie. Like, it wasn't as bad as the past Lord of the Rings movies, but, I mean, I don't know. I think they sort of maybe overused him a bit in terms of the action scenes, like, because his scenes went on forever.
Especially during the bit where later on in the movie, after the elves capture the dwarves and Bilbo, Bilbo doesn't. Bilbo doesn't. He holds back. He doesn't get seen by the elves, and the dwarves, they get captured. They get thrown in prison. Bilbo comes in, breaks them out, and then they get out by hiding in the barrels, in these like wine barrels or whatever, and they go goes into the river, and they flow down the river, and there's this big sequence where they go through the river, and the orcs are coming in because the orcs are on their trail, and then the elves are coming in and like taking out the orcs along the river.
God, this scene was fucking insane.
It just kept going and going. And there's one bit where one of the dwarves like gets knocked out of the river, that stumbles across the land, like hopping around from like bank to bank,
bouncing off of like
everything. He eventually lands. I'm just like, I don't think physics work that way.
It reminded me of that scene from Tintin where they're going down through the town to the riverside.
And everyone's trying to
cut away. It was like going on for 5 minutes.
That one continuous shot where everyone is trying to grab the letter, and it only works if it's in 3D, and it's only there specifically for the 3D. And that's kind of like what this scene was. With the barrel thing that was made specifically for the 3D, just to do that, and of course then he comes out and he's like, and he comes out with like two axes or whatever, and he has like barrel armor.
Oh my god!
It was just silly more than
I'm surprised none of them drowned during that scene. Like, not just the characters, the actors. Like, they were in so much rushing water. I mean, I would have expected one of them at least to like have gone partially deaf from being waterlogged so much.
Yeah, really.
Like that scene was insane. I mean, it was funny, it was intense, and it was fun to watch. But it was insane.
I mean, Legolas got to stand on top of the door that they were floating down.
He's
just
like jumping over their heads.
Shooting that hour.
Damn it, Legolas! What can't you do? Oh, I know. Can't get a girl.
Oh.
Now we get to one of the more controversial parts that people either like or hate. They added a new character, a girl character, because they don't want this trilogy being a huge sausage fest, which it is.
It's more of this trilogy, I think, is more of a sausage fest than the Lord of the Rings one, because at least in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, there was a couple of female characters. Here, this is just
there's none. From what I heard, there is no girl characters in The Hobbit. Like, there's maybe like townsfolk.
In the actual book?
That's what I heard in the book. There's no actual like prominent female character. But I mean, I applaud them for actually, doing that, actually giving females like a presence and actually making her a strong character, because she's as badass as Legolas is. And
really.
She's like captain of the guard too, so it's like, awesome, we have a strong woman and she's in charge of an army. This is great. And then they ruin her.
They make it into a love triangle.
Oh my god, why? Why, Hollywood? Why do you resort to this every time we have a female character? Oh god. Like,
it's pretty much with any action movie. They have to have a love interest, blah, 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 blah.
Like, I should have known this was coming, and I say this for one big reason, because they made one of the dwarves hot.
Yeah.
It's like, there are, how many dwarves?
13.
Like, 13 dwarves, and of course they're all like ugly as sin, big bushy beards, bulbous noses, weird
very chubby, very fat.
Yeah, and then you have this one dwarf who looks normal. And not just normal, he looks hot.
I was confused at first. I'm just like, wait, this is one of the dwarves? Really?
He's like sort of normalish height. Like, he's taller than a normal dwarf would be. He doesn't have a beard. He has like shortish hair. He looks sort of like a young Aragorn without a beard. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, okay, that's strange. We have these dwarves and we have this dwarf. Is he like part human or something?
I don't remember him from the first one.
And I'm thinking like, okay, he's gonna probably get a love interest later. And then, sure enough, he gets paired up with a love interest. And of course, they try to do the whole thing where the couple are two different races.
Of course.
Yeah, because, that forbidden romance, that whole dynamic
because he's a dwarf and she's an elf, and elves and dwarves are supposed to hate each other, but then Legolas has a thing for her, and it's like, it's completely unnecessary to the plot, because it's just...
I wouldn't say it's completely unnecessary. The only thing that serves to do is to get Legolas involved with the dwarf story.
Yeah.
Because think about it, because after the dwarves escape, they continue on their path. The elves decide to just let them go.
Mm-hmm.
But then, when they hear that something happened, they all do their usual elvish thing where they try to separate themselves from it and hide away until everything dies down. And Legolas finds out that the girl elf, who in her, 10 minutes of time with the dwarf, decides to go after him.
Yes.
He realizes that she's out there, so of course he decides to go after her, and now it's both of them going after the dwarves.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, she serves the purpose of getting Legolas more involved in the story, just not in a very good way. Not
in the way that we really want it to be.
Because
it's just it's the same old excuse where it's like, oh, she falls in love with him. It's like, she has to do this because she's fallen in love with him. And
I mean, granted, it's not just because she's fallen in love with him. It's more because she knows he's gonna die. Because at one point during the battle, the dwarf gets stabbed by an orc sword, and that causes him to be poisoned.
Yes.
She's the only one that knows this. So she's going after him because apparently she knows how to heal him.
Yes.
So at least it's not just because, oh, I want to be with this person I just met. At least I need to save this person who I've grown an affinity for. So at least it's a tad more believable, which is I'm thankful for. But still, it's still a sort of forced way to get them all involved in the story.
It's the fact that they still have that love triangle is kind of why that still has that.
And of course, you have to put the woman who played Kate from Lost in that role. She hasn't been given enough shit with being, the desire of a love triangle and, having people already spew hate at her for how her character acts.
And she didn't want it. She was furious after what she found out about this.
I would be too! I'd be like, okay, I don't want any more hate mail, so just don't put me in a romantic role. Be like, okay. Oh, by the way, the executive wants you in this romantic role. Son of a bitch! Yeah,
oh,
but I mean, other than that, she is a good character. I just hope the romance doesn't take up a huge part of her arc, because that would suck.
That would
I want to see her kicking butt, because she's awesome. But I guess we'll have to wait for the third movie for that.
Yeah, really. But here's the thing that kind of bugs me, and I've been thinking a lot about this, because after that whole sequence with the whole, with the elves and being chased by the orcs, then all of a sudden the movie kind of slows down for a good 45 minutes, because then they get to this village. It's the village right before the dwarf dwelling, right before they get to the actual place. And they're in this village, and they're all they're like, oh, what's it? They're like, what's going on? Wait, there's dwarves here. No, we should not help these dwarves. They're just going to bring trouble along. And Stephen Fry is there for some reason, and even Stephen Fry couldn't save the scene. That's sad because I kind of like him, but it just kind of just lulls for a while. Where not much is happening. Well, they do cut away to what the elves trying to figure out what they want to do, and between Gandalf meeting up with Radagast in some high.
It pretty much turns into Metal Gear, where they have to sneak around everywhere because everybody hates them and is either not willing to help them or is willing to turn them in.
Mm-hmm. But it just kind of but that's the thing. It just lingers there for a while, and it's kind of put me. I'm just like, okay, yeah, they're talking, but I've seen them talking in other films, like Lord of the Rings and other stuff, and it's just it doesn't the dialogue just doesn't feel that interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because maybe I'm missing something. Because in Lord of the Rings it was interesting because something was going on, but here it's just It's just like, oh, it's like, oh, we shouldn't help them because they're, we don't like them. They're just going to bring more trouble along. And I'm just like, and it's like, all right. But they cut away to other stuff. I mean, we do get to see Gandalf. I mean, Gandalf does do some things, like he meets up with Radagast and, trying to think, something is going on. We need to go find this necromancer guy. And so he goes over to the necromancer lair, and it's like, and Radagast is like, what if it's a trap? And Gandalf's like, it sure is a trap. And it's like,
which is why I'm gonna go waltzing right into it, banging my stick loudly everywhere, and trying to reveal my enemy, which I know is there in the hundreds and will easily overtake me.
I smell a trap. What's the next move? Spring the trap. So he goes in, and he eventually gets captured. He gets captured by the necromancer. It turns out that the necromancer is working for Sauron.
I thought he was Sauron.
Was he? Or was he?
At one point he gets captured by this big, gray puff of smoke.
Well, that's the necromancer himself.
Yeah, and then he actually looks into his face, and you see the eye of Sauron. You see Sauron, in the middle of the eye.
Is it really Sauron?
He even says his name. So I guess that is Sauron. I mean, I said, I haven't read the book, so I don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. There's some other stuff going on, but then it goes back to the dwarves, and we have to help him out, we have to help him out, and he's like, oh, well, I guess he can't come along with us, and eventually the town decides to help them out, and it's like, then sends them on their merry way across the other side of the lake, and they eventually get there, and they get to the top of the mountain, and they're stuck because they don't know how to open it, because they think, oh no, it's like I can't put the key in the hole, and maybe it's just me, or maybe I wasn't paying attention or whatever, but I didn't realize there was a whole riddle thing in order for them to get into the mountain. Was that established at some point, and I just forgot?
I think it might have been established in the first film. It was probably established in the first film. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I think it might have been well established. But then again, it's been so long. It's been long since we've seen it. Plus, it's 2.5 hours worth of stuff. So, but Bilbo finally figures it out. No, it's moonlight, not sunlight. And then he goes in and he opens it up, and he's like, "Okay, we're gonna go in and get the."
Bilbo's the most competent character in this movie.
I know, and then he goes in, and then he gets into and then he finally sneaks in, and he's like, and the door's like, "Well, good luck on that." He's like, "You're on your." It's like, "Go ahead," and he's like, "I'm terrified, but I have to go through this." And he eventually gets into the gold. He gets to the gold, and it's not so much the gold they're trying to go after. It's the one stone that's
the symbol, the jewel of the king or something.
Yes, so that will rally all the dwarves together to come back and take back their land, and
because they wouldn't want to do that to begin with, even without a gem.
But I really want to talk about Smaug for a little bit. About Benedict Cumberbatch and his role as Smaug. Well, I mean, he also does Necromancer, but he's mostly Smaug.
Smaug definitely was the best part in that movie. Not just
because it's Benedict Cumberbatch and I can listen to that voice all day, but
visual-wise, he is striking and he is amazing. Lord of the Rings always have that one thing in each movie where they do the really good job on CG. Of course, the first trilogy you had Gollum, which was obviously the best, but in this one, it's gotta be Smaug. And he doesn't look like one of those overly fake CGI dragons. I kept thinking back to that dragon from Alice in Wonderland, but no, this one he is terrifying. He is wow.
And that voice, and Bilbo's like, oh no, I'm not here. I'm here to gaze in your awness of the great and powerful Smaug, and there's tales and songs about you, and he's just going on, and
that's one of the things that confuses me about Bilbo, is that he is simultaneously the most competent and incompetent character in the Hobbit movies, because when it comes to the action stuff, he does a surprisingly good and a really effective job. But when it comes to the talking parts, trying to create a ruse, trying to lie, trying to explain things, he does horribly. And you see this with Smaug. I mean, the only thing that works in his favor is the fact that he amuses the people he lies to so much that it gives them enough time for him to make an escape.
or for in this case to find the jewel. He does find the jewel, and he's like scrambling between trying to talk to Smaug and trying to grab the jewel, and the jewel keeps bopping around all over the place. Eventually, Smaug finds out what he's up to, and Smaug tries to go after him, and then all the dwarves come in, and they all start trying to go after Smaug.
Did Bilbo get the gem, or did he lose it?
I think he loses it.
I couldn't tell. Again, it was a.
I think he loses it, and then Smaug just keeps chasing him, and then all the dwarves come in. They're trying to trap Smaug, and all the try to come up with like 2 or 3 different ways to try to trap Smaug, and at the same time, the orcs have finally approached to that village that they were at before, and they're trying to attack the village to try to figure out where all the dwarves are, figure out where the dwarves that they've been following. But at the same time, because a couple of the dwarves actually stayed behind, and so because one guy, he's all like ill and whatnot, and eventually
he got poisoned. So.
Yeah, and eventually the female elf comes in. She finally arrives. Tells him how to fix it. And I like this because it's also a little nod to the original trilogy, because in the original trilogy, Frodo got poisoned, and they needed to find the Kingsford weed, and they mentioned that in this one. I'm just like, ooh. That's a nice little nod to the hardcore Tolkien fans.
I personally found that hilarious because of the double meaning. Weed saves somebody's life. This movie is pro-weed. The Tolkien series is pro-weed.
Oh, they're always smoking something in any of the Tolkien films.
I know, they're always smoking this stuff, they are, but in this case, it actually saved their life. So it's like, what are you saying, movie? Weed saves people's lives?
Are you saying we should legalize? It worked in 2 states so far. We still got the other 48.
I just love when they're trying to figure out what to cure him, and they're like, I know what you get. Weed. I'm like, what? Like, holy shit, weed cured him. This is amazing.
But now the orcs have come in to attack, and there was this one attempt where the dwarves are trying to trap him in I think in liquid gold or something, or lava.
Yeah, they managed to reheat the mines and all the forge and stuff, and they melt down a good amount of treasure and somehow temporarily make a statue of gold before it melts and then covers him. I mean, it looked pretty cool, but I question the physics of that.
Well, then again, it's a dragon.
I know, but still.
Eventually, he's like, I should probably go to that town, and then the dragon escapes. He flies over to the town, and Bilbo's like, oh crap.
To be continued.
And then, but there was so much action going on, and it's like, wait, the end? Wait, what? No, wait, what the?
I know, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, you really are going to end it there? I'm
like, what else is there to do? I mean, there's going to be this epic battle at the town, and then you have and then you have to fight off the dragon, but after that...
I know, another example of why this should not be 3 movies, because you don't end it like that. You do not end it like that. I mean, one of the things that all 3-part movies have done well is that they have the climax, everything slows down, they state what either needs to be done or pause at a moment to reflect on what happens, and then it ends. With this, it's like, I felt like I was watching a 2-parter of a television show. That's
what it felt like for me as well. It was just like, it felt like one of those TV cliffhangers where it's like, oh, to be continued next season. And
on the one hand, it creates that need, I have to see the next movie now. I have to find out what happens, but it's like, I have to wait a whole nother fucking year for this. What the fuck, movie?
It's like Doctor Who fans. We have to wait a year for another episode.
Oh, God. Yeah, and, it wasn't a horrible ending. I've seen far worse endings in movies.
Yeah.
Come on!
But here's the thing. Do we really think that's a bad thing that it left off like that? Because marketing wise, yes, it makes sense. But
I know, but
But from a narrative standpoint, it's and that's the thing. To me, it's how much more is there?
That's what I'm saying. I talked to other people who have read the book, and they said, "Oh, it ends with the dragon attacking the town and them defeating the dragon." So, what more is there? I'm wondering if they're gonna actually maybe they'll add in the 10 million endings that they did with Return of the King.
Yeah, that's what will happen. It'll be like the 10 billion endings.
Like it'll go back to with Frodo, and it'll lead up to like Fellowship of the Ring, maybe.
Although I have heard that what they could do is that, you know, they get the gold, they figure out what they do with the gold, and they could spend time with that, and that's probably what's going to happen. But the question is, how much of that are they going to really focus on? As far as, you know, what they actually end up doing with the gold, because it's like, I mean, I guess there's some conflict with that.
I guess
but it's like,
we'll see. We'll see what Jackson pulls out of his ass.
Yeah, really.
I mean, I'm not dissing the man or anything. He's a good director.
He is.
I'm just wondering just how far he's willing to go to pad out a film to 3 movies.
I know Peter Jackson puts in so much stuff in there. Like I remember when I saw King Kong in theaters, and when he was remaking King Kong, I'm sitting there going like, wait, oh, it's 3 hours long. I'm like, really? 3 hours for King Kong? I mean, the original King Kong was like an hour and 15 minutes. I've seen the original King Kong. It's a good movie. It still holds up for 1933, but when Peter Jackson did it in 2005, about there, when I saw that, it was like 3 hours long. They put in like so much stuff. And that's the thing with Peter Jackson. Sometimes he puts in so much.
You know what the fuck that thing is?
He puts in so much. I mean, it looks great and it's brilliant, but at the same time, it's like it was exhausting when it gets to the end of it.
You know what the messed up thing is going to be? Despite how much he pads out this movie, when it comes on DVD, there's still going to be like over 6 hours of deleted footage.
There's going to be an extended version. Oh, and I know there is, because the extended version of the first Hobbit movie came out like last month, and I bought that for my brother-in-law for his birthday, because I know a year from now there's going to be an extended version. Excuse me. I know a year from now there's going to be an extended version of this, and sure enough, there is an extended version. I'm just like, here you go.
Yeah.
It's for the die-hard Tolkien fans.
Yeah, and it's good for people, you know, who are getting into film and stuff. It's good to see how things are done. But I'm just saying, you know, why leave anything out if you're going to already pad a movie that isn't that long to begin with, that you could read quicker than you watch?
It's all because of it's movie theater. It's movie theaters and how many showings you can get out of it. Like movie theaters typically don't like.
Gotta get those movie seats.
Don't like movies that are more than 2.5 hours long. Like 2 hours is good because they can get a number of showings per day. But when you get something like Lord of the Rings, or you get something like Titanic, or or Peter Jackson's King Kong, that's 3 hours long. You don't get that many showings because you can only because there's only so many hours in a day, and there's only so many times you can show the film. Yeah. But then again, Lord of the Rings: Return of the King was really so good of a movie that, you know.
Personally, I think they should extend deadlines on certain movies, like actually extend the time that a movie is in theater longer. That way, you know, it gives them the opportunity.
Well, I remember when Titanic was in theaters. It had a pretty long run. It ran from like November of 1996, 97 to like April. It had like a good like 5-6 month run.
I know. Same thing with Monsters Inc.
Mm-hmm.
That has like, I think the record for like the longest time in theaters, like 6 months or whatever. But the thing is, like, a lot of the times movies, even if they're good or whatever, tend to get rushed out, and there's so many more movies coming along that movie theaters can only fit so much. They'll just toss out whatever movie
and whatever money,
has a slight dip in viewership, and just
move on to the next thing. In sales, really.
Mm-hmm. So I just think they should either build more theaters, or they should extend the deadlines for a certain movie. Be like, okay, this is supposed to be released here. Let's give them an extra month just so we can get more sales from the previous movie that came out. You know, I mean, maybe that's just
they can always put it back in theaters if there's enough popular demand for it, which has happened every so often.
They usually wait a long time, and then they usually add something like a blooper reel or whatever the hell.
Or it's in 3D.
that too. But I mean, with Desolation of Smaug, like I said, I enjoyed it. You know, I enjoyed it more than the first one, because, you know, there's more action going on, there's more stuff. Many times it gets a bit too busy, because you're looking at all these, different side plots at once, and there's so many battles going on at once, it's hard to keep track of stuff sometimes.
I mean, I enjoyed it, but I feel like I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, because I felt like I mean, the second one definitely had a lot more action in it, but I felt like there weren't really enough of those moments, like in the first one, where they had time to focus on the characters and their character development, and there was a little bit in this one too, but I felt like there wasn't that much of it, you know. I mean, the first one was an overlying theme of, like, you got to do this for your home, and, we're going to help, and even though Bilbo's like, oh, I'm not one of you guys, but I still want to help you guys out, that kind of theme. But in the second one, it's more like, oh, you're just going to get back your gold, and how do you know you're not just going to be like your father, full of greed and stuff like that, which was interesting because it kind of plays off in the original trilogy with when Frodo in the ring and how the ring started consuming him, but I felt like they didn't play that enough in Desolation of Smaug.
I kept expecting the guy to go through some sort of arc where he does realize that his grandfather was a greedy bastard and he should learn his lesson, but it doesn't seem to have come yet.
Maybe they'll show that in the third one, after the fact, when they get to all the gold and stuff. Maybe, but
because I thought maybe he was starting to get a little bit towards the end, and then when he sees Bilbo, instead of asking him, hey, are you okay, the first thing he asks him is, did you get the gem? And then when Bilbo doesn't give him a straight answer, he holds him back and gives him the death stare. I'm like, okay, this guy, you don't give him the gem.
Yeah,
he's gonna go mad with power. I don't know what they're gonna do. I mean, I kind of hope there's an arc just because it kind of needs it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how it happens in the book. If he does get it and he does get overrun with greed and then gets killed, or if he decides to not take the throne, I don't know what happens. But I want to see some sort of change for him. I mean, has one of the most prominent roles. You think something like that. I mean, the only real change he goes through is that he decides to trust Bilbo.
Yeah.
So, even though Bilbo is technically lying to all of them. About the ring, anyway.
Yeah, really. But then again, that has to, because then the ring shows up again. That leads it to the Lord of the Rings, and it's one of those things where it's you can't really blame that because that's happened in the story. So it's
I just say thank God he had that ring, or he would have died so many times over the course of that movie.
Yeah, really.
They all would have died. I'm surprised though. How is it that Smaug was able to see him? Was that just some sort of dragon power, or he could just really sense him?
I don't think he was able to see him when he had the ring on. He could smell him, though.
Mm.
He wasn't able to see him because, when you have the ring on, you're invisible, and that's true. That goes for, any creature. But he had a very strong, keen sense of smell. Although he can't really identify who he is because he never smelt Hobbit before. He's not used to Hobbit.
True. I just love all the memes that have popped up since this movie came out from Sherlock fans.
Yes, I've seen the one meme where there's Sherlock and Watson, and they're talking, and then all of a sudden it's Bilbo looks over at the Smaug, and the caption reads, Sherlock?
Watson? It's when did you become a dragon? When did you get hairy feet?
And the funny thing is, the dragon would be the Sherlock spirit animal, but that's beside the point.
Makes sense. Oh, there's two other characters I wanted to briefly talk about. One was that guy at the beginning. He was like a bear.
Oh, he was like a were-bear, part human thing.
I mean, he doesn't really have any prominent role other than getting the hobbits from point A to point B, but I did think they did a really good job on the CGI with him.
Yeah, that was actually pretty impressive, but especially the transformation stuff.
I mean, I would have liked to have seen him more, actually. It's disappointing he wasn't in there that much.
Mm-hmm. That was even better than the Wolfman. I saw Wolfman in theaters.
Mm-hmm. And the other was, who was that guy? I don't know the word. The guy who they meet in the town who gets him safely in the
the guy with the boat.
I should call him the new Aragorn, pretty much.
Or the new Boromir?
No, I would call him the new Aragorn, because his storyline seems similar in that, he's like the hope everyone looks to, he's like the leader that's trying to lead the people against a corrupt government, he's trying to live down his family past, because, father or grandfather, I guess, was supposed to, destroy the dragon, and he didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting arc, and then he finally gets the thing, and he's getting ready to fight the dragon, and That's a to be continued. I really hope they do something with that at least.
Well, I know he's probably going to be the one to slay the dragon, or somebody is, because they don't have that freaking arrow
or wound the dragon or something to give the final blow.
Yeah, I mean, I know he wasn't that prominent. He didn't seem striking as much. It was just interesting that they were trying to do that whole arc thing again.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of their running gags, I guess you should call it at this point.
What, does every character has a side arc?
It seems like it. The movie's so packed full of, like, side characters that each have this own thing going on, and it's like, it's more confusing than Lord of the Rings, because at least with Lord of the Rings, you had, 4 different things going on? You had the hobbits going to Mordor.
But you're able to keep track of everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, for the most part, like I said, you had the hobbits going to Mordor, you had the 3 warriors with the big epic battles, you had the 2 other hobbits going through the woods, and then you had, the wizards doing stuff. And then eventually they all merge into one. With this, it's like there's so much shit going on, and some of it doesn't even have to do with the main plot. It's just confusing.
Some of that happens in the last 20 minutes of the film.
Well, regardless, I still look forward to seeing the final Hobbit installment next year.
Yes.
I mean, like I said, I know some fans, some hardcore fans, are gonna, I've heard them complain about this movie. I've heard them complain about how awful it is. And I honestly can't, say otherwise because I haven't read the book. But I will say if you're a casual moviegoer, if you're not a hardcore Tolkienite, then you probably will enjoy this movie. So I do recommend it. Just if you see it in 3D, just make sure it's a theater with good 3D. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying. If you're gonna see it, if you're gonna see it in 3D, make sure it is good 3D. But I mean, it works. I mean, it also works fine in 2D also. And if you're a diehard Tolkien fan, you're gonna appreciate this regardless. Just means that you're definitely gonna get another extended version in a couple of months. So.
Well, anyway, I'm katTcritic.